Essentially, the serpent is the symbol of enlightenment and health. If you look at the caduceus, for those who don't know, it's a staff with wings at the top and two serpents intertwining and climbing up the staff. It is used often in medicine. It's a symbol of medicine. Even like some ambulances will have the caduceus on the side of the ambulance, but usually they'll only use one serpent climbing up the staff. Also, veterinary clinics use the caduceus, but usually there's only one serpent climbing up the staff. When you only see one serpent climbing up the staff, it represents imbalance, because it either represents the Ida or the Pingala Nadi, the energetic channel that wraps around the Sushumna. And the Sushumna is the central staff of the caduceus that represents the human spine. So the caduceus, essentially, you guys, the symbol, and you know what I'll do? I'll put a link at the beginning of this video. I'll put an image file, so if people aren't familiar with what the caduceus is, you can see what I'm talking about. There's a staff that represents the human spine, and there's two snakes that are climbing up it. You see wings at the top of this symbol, because when the Kundalini energy moves up the spine and gets to the top of the head, which is representative of the bulb at the top of the staff, you experience what's known as Christ consciousness, and the consciousness becomes feathered, which is why you see the wings. And that just means that you've taken flight into the 4th and 5th dimensional levels. You're now seeing things from a feathered perspective, with your pineal gland open, the queen and king's chamber, the pituitary and the pineal, the brain stem, the medulla oblongata, the pons, the cerebellum. Everything becomes enlightened through Kundalini consciousness. And that's what the feathers also represent: the success of the Kundalini energy moving from the Muladhara up to the Ajna and beyond, the chakra centers. And it's common for the Kundalini energy to only move up to the heart center before it moves back down, because the opening of the heart is a very difficult thing for the Westerner to achieve, because there's so many different, not only engrams, but the opening the sacred space of the heart through the activation of Kundalini. It can be a very traumatic experience. It brings up a lot of painful memories. But the heart chakra, you guys, is the bridge between the upper and lower energy centers. And until that energy center is opened and the key is actually activated, and you open up this sacred space of the heart, the Kundalini energy, without moving through the heart, cannot get up into the thyroid. It cannot get up into the throat chakra. It cannot climb up past the throat and get crucified and go into the king and queen's chamber and through the Ajna chakra. So this is a great book. I'm going to be giving out a lot of book recommendations, you guys, because a lot of these books have helped me massively throughout the years. There's some really neat artwork on this. The mysterious serpent beings, or serpent deities of ancient myth, were real people who had attained a state of enlightenment. Enlightenment energy, you guys, regardless of what people are telling you out here in the New Age movement, is highly serpentine. It is a reptilian energy, but it's a reptilian energy with angelic aspects. So Kundalini does indeed stimulate the reptilian brain, but it stimulates it past its fight or flight mechanisms. Most of us are stuck in a reptilian brain consciousness that hasn't been feathered. The reptilian brain hasn't been christened through the Kundalini energy, and due to that, it stays in a constant state of perpetual fight or flight. In the reptilian brain, when it is not christened, when it has not been touched by these energies, it can be a very dangerous thing. It's quick to react. It's quick to be. It's quick to be violent. You name it. The reptilian brain is also a very ancient part of our evolutionary. The brain, excuse me. The amygdala, you name it. The reptilian brain, essentially, you can consider it your biological life. It's a protective aspect of the human physiology. Again, we have a reptilian brain, mammalian brain, bird brain, you name it. We have multiple aspects to ourselves, but the reptilian brain is responsible for protecting us. It sends us intuitive surges through our nervous system and through our consciousness in times of danger. It helps steer us in the right direction. It can be connected to kind of supernatural experiences where we are given divine insight to protect ourselves. Maybe you're driving on the freeway and you have a strong intuitive urge to get over really quick into the next lane, and right when you do that, a car crashes and rolls right past you in the lane that you were in, and if you wouldn't have moved over, it would have killed you. So the amygdala is largely responsible for that. The different parts of the reptilian brain, essentially it's the whole brain. The beautiful thing about Kundalini is that it actually activates all the parts of the nervous system, the brain, the cerebral spinal fluid, the physiology, the bones, you name it. It unifies everything, and that's what enlightenment is. It's a unification of all the fragmented parts of ourselves. Essentially, it is the quintessential story of Isis rebuilding Osiris after he was dismembered and scattered all across Egypt. The Kundalini energy will rebuild you. It tears everything apart and then rebuilds you. It unifies all the glandular system, It unifies everything. It stimulates the thyroid. It gets the metabolism working again, the parathyroid, the human consciousness, the pons, the dura mater. Everything just becomes hyper-stimulated, and you experience reality through the context of everything you being unified. So people ask me all the time how to stimulate Kundalini. How did I achieve Kundalini? The first time I experienced Kundalini, it was the night before Easter at about 11:40 p.m. I was in my room, and I decided to hold myself in a shoulder stand. I believe the name of that asana is Sarvagasana. I could be wrong, but essentially you could just Google shoulder stand yoga pose, and I held myself in that position for a prolonged period, and the energy, my coccyx, my pelvic floor started to vibrate and hum and get very, very hot. The heat was so intense that it felt like I was going to spontaneously combust. It was almost frightening. And I held the shoulder stand for a prolonged period, and as I was doing this, as the heat in my coccyx built up, my consciousness was changing. I could feel energy moving through my spine. All the questions I had wondered about, everything that was confusing to me up until that point, was melted away, and everything just made sense as this energy started to build up. And after holding that shoulder stand for a prolonged period, I decided to stand up. And as I stood up, it was like the energy imploded on itself, and it shot right up my spine and moved up my system at what felt like light speed, and went into my brain and activated. It felt like a pop inside my brain, and I could feel the center of my brain actually enlarging. It felt like the middle of my brain, my pineal gland, there was a pea, something the size of a pea, and when the Kundalini energy went inside of it, it popped. It actually made a loud noise that echoed through the room, and it felt like what was the size of a pea became the size of an almond. And it actually stimulated my uvula. It caused my tongue to move uncontrollably in my mouth and rub certain parts of my tongue, little meridian points that are actually responsible for stimulating the Merkaba. That is a huge occult secret unto itself. There's an occult axiom, an adage that goes something along the lines of, if you want to stimulate your Merkaba or the serpent, you use the tip of your tongue. There are certain relay points in the mouth. When the Kundalini energy gets stimulated, it can actually